Can I ask you guys what you think about actually like videoing in, like Discord server or
I
Twitch
don't. I'm
or
not
any of that
100%
shit?
sure what Discord is.
Is
it a Twitch?
Terry.
I don't.
Terry.
No, come on.
Yeah, no. So Discord is basically it's a program that is a chat and compiling program. You can screen share. You can everyone webcam in on the same channel.
Is that what it
you
is?
can voice chat. You can text. You could use it as a database storage device for campaign notes and stuff like that as well.
Like, is it specifically for, like, I've just been pretending to understand what Discord is for like 2 months now. I'm going, people are like, look at Discord. I'm like,
thing.
yeah, cool.
It's the new thing. It is.
Is it specific for, like, designed for games?
It is. It's not designed for games. It's just designed for kind of everything. But there's a tilt to it. Like they definitely know that their major user base is going to be gamers, and so they've tilted toward it.
It's really media sharing, but not necessarily like dropping videos in. But like,
Right.
you can have meetings, over it. I know
It's like a conference call system mixed with a voice chat software mixed with MSN Messenger mixed with
Google Drive,
mixed with Facebook
it's got like
Messenger.
a Google Drive type thing. That's pretty useful, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be the next thing. I know that there are a lot of little like .com startups and whatnot that are running with it. Or they've got people in different cities that are working together through online means and like logging into the server, and they have like the daily check-in. They do it through a Discord server.
Yep.
Right, because all of the info can be there if you don't have a legit office to work out of.
Yeah. So for the purposes of this, Discord actually works great
For D&D,
Well,
I've
for
never done
D&D
it.
and for this, right? Like you can either all webcam in a conference call and just play online, which we've done before, Adam. Like
I hated that. It wasn't Discord though. Like we were using
It
Skype?
was like 10 years ago though.
I know.
Like
What was
10,
it?
12 years
Was
ago
it-
we were doing this.
It was Messenger. It was
No,
terrible.
we were using Skype. We were using old Skype to do it. Discord is infinitely better.
I think I tried using Google Hangout once for that type of thing. People would drop.
You were the other person. On Google Hangout. There's nobody.
There wasn't supposed to be.
No,
There's only two people using it.
Roll
I was
20.
like, what the hell are you talking about?
Roll20 used Google Hangout as kind of their backbone.
Yeah.
When they were
Yeah, that's
first
what it was.
starting
I
off.
tried Roll20, and it just didn't work for my style.
We used Roll20 for ages in my other group, and it worked great. Like when my daughters were first born, I couldn't leave the house as often, so we would put me into the Roll20 server, and the DM would just use the Roll20 battle map on a projector against the wall as the main battle map.
All right, this is fascinating, and I love telling all the flashback stories of this. But let's actually talk about the beginning of D&D campaigns.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Sure. Yeah,
Yes.
that works.
All right. Shall we do the music?
Welcome to It's a Mimic with your DMs, Adam, Dan, and Terry.
Welcome to the It's a Mimic podcast. We're doing episode 12, Worldbuilding, where we're looking at the beginning of creating a campaign. I am Adam, and I'm here with these two hound dogs. We've got the Russell Terrier and the Cocker Daniel. I'm killing it. This is fantastic.
To be Russell Terrier?
Yeah.
At least you're not Cocker Daniel.
That's better. I feel like that's better.
How is that in any world better?
Because you'd be a bigger dog than me, you'd be more physically imposing. Like, this is my belief in dogs.
Break down the syllables there, Terry, and say that you appreciate it. Break them down.
I know, I get it. This is my belief in dogs. If they can't survive on their own, then they shouldn't be here. And I don't believe that the Russell Terrier...
You've just angered half the internet.
Anything smaller than knee height is a cat.
Right.
And thus has no purpose.
So, world building. You guys have just pissed off everyone on the internet. I love all furry babies. Can we call it that?
Sure.
There we go.
Yeah, because your sincerity was bleeding through the mic there.
Let's talk about world building. But before we do, let's roll initiative. See who's going to talk first before I open it up to the first.
I'm feeling good. Feeling good.
Well, I'm talking first by a landslide.
Oh, we're rolling up.
Yeah, Terry and I are rolling up, but I'm rolling a D12 today just to prove that my dice are still...
Natural 20.
So he rolled lower than me on the first roll. But
No, I go second. You
So
go
he goes,
first.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's a natural 20.
Yeah, but I'm
Doesn't
rolling
matter.
up against him.
Okay, fine. Grab it.
First day, Dan?
Kind of, maybe. I don't know.
All right, so I want to talk about world building. How do you start it? When you are building a campaign, do you look at it from the top down or the bottom up? So hold on before you say anything because you're already excited about it.
I'm so excited.
Just to explain to everybody at home what I'm talking about here. What this is when you are creating your campaign from your very first notes when you're doing it. Are you talking about
notes?
Yes, we all know that you are bad at prepping, and so you don't do it. But for everyone else at home, when we're talking about the top-down or bottom-up methods, we're talking about, do you go grand scale, big picture, and work your way down from continent to country to state to region to city to building, right? Is that the way that you're doing this? Or do you start in a building and worry about all that other shit later, right? Do you talk about, when you're introducing your campaign, do you talk about, hey, we're going to do a great big expansive thing with these gods over here and the emperor is doing this and you have this huge idea in your head? Or do you say, let's start off as level 1 characters in a farm village with with a princess that's gone missing, and then we're going to step up to the challenge, right? So how do you go about building this from the ground up? So Dan, you rolled dice.
So the first thing I do before I do any sort of world building, before I do any sort of world prep, before I do anything else like that, I sit my players down during session 0 and I kind of figure out what we want to do. Like if I have a bunch of people that are wanting to run an urban campaign, I'm wasting my time if I'm planning that farm village in the middle of nowhere, right? So I want to figure that out first.
Right, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But
we're going to talk about that later, but I just wanted to get that out. Like, feel where they're going first. Once you know, personally, I go top down. So what I'll do is I'll know I want my party to start in a simple village of some sort. So I go, where is this village? So I will go online, I will find my map of the large continental map. And then I will find the spot that's going to hit all of the little points I know I'm going to want to hit on that map. And I'll zoom into that point. And if there's a big city nearby, I'll be like, okay, cool. I want to make sure that there's a big city for the party to go to nearby. And then I will make my city there. And I'll be like, okay, small lumber village. And then I will go to an image provider service of some kind and look up, Dungeons & Dragons small town map. And I will scroll through until I see something that I like and go, that one. And then I will assign all of the numbers that are on there from whatever that village came from originally to my own things. And I will build my town up from there.
Right, okay, so what are the pros and cons then of going from top down?
You get a better vision of what the world is when you're when you go top down. When you build it from the ground up, I feel you're more restrained to make up or find those sources after the fact to build into it. Like if your party wants something different after the fact. Whereas
are you saying that prep work is important, Dan? Is that what you're saying right now?
Well, it still was. I know I've been quite surprised. It still was the laziest prep ever because this is what I heard. Dan went, I start with somebody else's map and then I shrink down and I take somebody else's smaller map and then I steal another image and then I take somebody else's village map, which is great. It's the lazy DM way.
Precisely.
Right.
And then it just gives you an idea of what's around.
I'm not just talking geography though. I'm talking about conflicts and bad guys and all the
pantheon.
I use the base wizard, the base Wizards of the Coast, Forgotten Realms Pantheon base, because they're the ones I know the best, so we're going with those. Mm-hmm. I don't really put, external world conflicts in my game when I first start building the campaign world, the petri dish that my party's in. I don't really put a lot of external conflicts. They have their current conflicts.
So from a campaign building scenario, correct me if I'm wrong in this, you're saying that you go from big picture and you zoom in to small picture as far as the geography aspect.
The geography goes,
but when it comes to the actual campaign plan, whatever it is that you come up with when you're sitting on the toilet because you don't actually prep like a normal person.
Wait until the players ask me questions.
Right. But what I'm saying then is that why are the players asking you questions when you're on the toilet, Dan? That's weird. So anyway, when when you're actually prepping the campaign, you actually start from the ground and you build outward.
I start from the players and I build outward. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So like, I want to make sure that the players are...
But you want to have the infrastructure of the geography there so you know where you're building outward.
Exactly. Yeah. So I know where I'm building outward to. Case in point, the Clear Cut group, we shouted them out a while ago. The Clear Cut group, which is the group I run, they are situated just south of the High Forest, right outside of Waterdeep in the Forgotten Realms. Like, I know High Forest, big, powerful group of elves that reside there. I know that from the lore, and I could guess it because it's a big Smegan forest. So I know there's a elven character in our group, and I'm like, okay, you come from this group and you've come down, so I know that's there. And if he wants to throw in some conflict with his backstory, it'd be like, well, I'll start filling in the blanks for him in that way. But yeah, mostly I get my geography and an idea of where things are, and then I zoom in, and then from there I build out as the players need.
Kind of like on Google Earth, where it's more, you get more detail the closer you are, and then it just becomes very general as you sort of zoom. Google is a small .com startup company you may have heard of.
Yes.
But as you
I wonder if they're on a Discord server.
maybe they are. Maybe, I think there's a Kickstarter.
I think they own Discord.
But as you zoom out, like, even the roads eventually start to disappear, and then it just says like Alberta or something. Alberta is a place in Canada for our American audience,
but not an important place. So just keep moving.
It's very
At least
cold.
their hockey teams aren't.
Okay, is that my turn?
I think that means you. Yeah.
Okay, Adam's left, so it's just me and Dan now talking about how Adam's wrong in all the different ways.
This could take a while.
Short conversation.
Dan, I'm very similar to you in how I would do it. I kind of think of my DM prep as kind of like the difference between climate and weather. Like, I need to understand the climate as in typical climate in the world, but I also need to understand that zoomed out version of the world, where everything is, where the mountain ranges are, where the forests are. I don't need to know them in details, but I just need to know the general climate of what is happening in the world, so I have general answers for people as these things come up. But I'll start in a very concentrated environment within one town with lots of different events and plot hooks and things going on there. But if players and characters do have questions related to other areas in the world as it comes up, I'll have a basic understanding of what's going on, and then deciding on based on where they decide to go, I'll then detail again in that area and concentrate in that area.
Yeah.
But you were talking about homebrew campaigns, and I kind of want to touch on very quickly the published modules and how I do it with that.
Oh, yeah.
Because they can be very confusing if you're new to them. There's all of this information, and lots of times the wizards try to make them very sandboxy in that you're not railroaded in where you go. So there's all these different places. It can be confusing on how to do it.
Specifically, Curse of Strahd is by far the most
Yeah, that's a great example.
disorganized.
Yeah,
I would almost even say Tomb of Annihilation is up there as well.
Yeah.
Because there are things going on all over the island of Chulz.
all over. And if you're new to D&D, you're thinking, where do we go? What am I supposed to do? So that's the way I handle those published modules as well, is I get a general idea of the climate of what's going on in the world. So wherever the players decide to go, it's easier for me to get that more concentrated
Do you
detail.
read the whole module first, though?
I will read the module once through. I won't go through the magnifying glass and try and remember all these details. I don't need to know all the details about the NPCs on the other side of the maps, but I need to know the key people who are there and if they're going to affect things where we are right now.
I was going to say that's one of the big criticisms of the modules that Wizards has released, especially the early stuff, the Horde of the Dragon Queen and that kind of stuff. The big criticism is the fact that you don't know who the big bad guy is for the first few sessions.
Right.
You don't know what the overarching plot line is. You can't, and it's really hard if you as a DM want to be able to drop I don't know why my voice is cracking tonight. I waited till Terry was drinking.
Damn these ridiculously light sweatpants.
Oh God!
Yeah, we're nerds.
I can see his cocker, Daniel.
We wear sweatpants. Okay. I hear what you're saying. And yes, Dan's gone. This is a serious company. I quit my job to do this podcast, you guys. And I need all three of these listeners to be engaged. I hear what you're saying. And yes, as a player, you don't necessarily need to know who the big bad is straight away. But as a DM, you need that information, I think, because you need to know where you're going with this. Well, can't be a surprise for you.
And before my voice cracked and we'd gone totally off the rails on that, I think it's so important to... as a DM, for me anyway, I want to be able to drop little hints of what's coming 20 sessions from now.
Right.
Even if it's just rumblings in the background, right? If you're running Storm King's Thunder you need to start talking about the ordering as early as possible for people, right? And a lot of the times when you pick up the beginning of the module, you don't have that information. As a DM, you don't have it. And it can be tedious to read through the whole thing, but by God, it's worth it.
See, I remember back in the day when you were basing they released the adventure paths on the Dungeon magazine that came out monthly.
Also Dragon magazine.
But Dragon was like a DM supplement. Dungeon was specifically modules and stuff like that, and player supplement. And
Yep.
We'll get into that and how fantastic it was later. But what they would do is, I remember them releasing their modules, and you would get the one month, and if you were trying to stay up to date and experience the new wave of everything, you had no idea what was going on in that campaign, because the next module wasn't out yet, and the module after that wasn't out yet, and the conclusion module wasn't out yet. So like, you had no clue where you're going. So like, we were making decisions that we had to be like, so guys, we gotta retcon this because that person's incredibly
because that
important.
wild decision is just not going to work for where the magazine thought the campaign.
Oh my God! Someone married the princess in level 2, and now we have to go rescue her. And...
Exactly.
It almost exactly that. There was in one of them there was this clerical character that one of our monk...
clerical.
No, a clerical character, not like she wasn't a cleric.
Okay.
She was just religious.
No, that was a clerical error on your part.
Almost a nun type character. I'm just gonna steamroll through this.
Holy crap!
The monk.
Steamroll denied.
Why are we like this? Damn it!
It's not why are we like this. Why is Adam like
this?
Anyways, so we had a character who wanted to target this nun character as a romantic interest, and we're like, yeah, sure.
Okay, what is wrong? Okay, never mind. Keep going. Yeah.
So. Yeah. Anyways, so
I'm having none of it.
We worked in this intricate love story, and he pulled her away from the church to be part of this thing, and it was this great, grandiose story. And we didn't have any. All we had was her name and her role in the church. We find out like 4 modules later that she's actually like in her 90s, human, like this old like matron.
Was the player cross?
Love it.
Pardon?
Was the player cross?
Oh, I hate you so much. Yes, he was. And like, I was like, yeah, so she's actually 90 something. And he's like, no, she's in her late 30s because you said late 30s.
This is why you have such thing as junior and senior that you scribble on the.
This is why when you're releasing modules in this way, you let players know the age and physical appearance of important NPCs.
I think for these modules, because at the beginning of the module, you typically get an overview of what's happening in the world right now, generally. But I think we need an additional DM's note of, hey, this is kind of the long-term plan of where this module is going to go. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's sandboxing. We can kind of go wherever we want to go. But the climate of the world, we're shifting towards this. So be prepared for this. Spoiler alert, Tiamat is going to be involved at the end.
Yeah, that's really useful information to have. Like, for example, when you pick up Out of the Abyss for the first time and whatnot, and you realize you're not meeting demons for a while. Mm-hmm. You're starting in the Underdark of all places, right? Like, that can be shocking to people. You pick up the demon campaign that we have so far, and
I think people just look at it, Out of the Abyss, and they go, oh, well, that means the Abyss, that means demons. Yeah. And they make that association. Naturally. And I don't think that's just a correct, like, you're literally judging a book by its cover when you pick it up.
Also, if you're reading Tyranny of Dragons, you would assume.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
But Abyss is a more general word. Like, if there's dragons in the title, you're going to... Well, even Dragon Heist. Dragon Heist isn't really about dragons. It's because the gold pieces are called dragons.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They're like... Yes, I know that it's called Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I didn't realize the first time that I held it in my hands that this was level 5 to level 20 mega dungeon underneath Waterdeep. Like, oh shit, we're doing this. All right, cool, I'm in. I thought it was first you have to get to the dungeon. I thought it was another one of these Tomb of Annihilation style stories, right? Until I flipped it open and read through it. And I mean, that one's pretty easy to understand immediately off the bat. But like what you're talking about, Terry, if you don't know, you have to read ahead. Yeah. So how much prep is too much prep then for session 1? Mm-hmm. I'm asking you specifically.
Oh, you're asking me specific? I think, I would say I'm like a middle prepper in that, like I said earlier, I just need to know the general climate of where we're going. And then I will prep, not overly. I tend to prep by my NPCs. what are the NPCs I have in the area? What are their motivations related to the climate of the world? What are their fears? What are their goals? So that it keeps me flexible and it doesn't make me rely on railroading the characters in any way. Because I think if you prep too much, it makes you, if you're not comfortable with doing that, you very much are. You are able to stay flexible. If you prep too much but you're newer to it, you're not flexible. And so you run the risk of railroading them. That's actually also my fear, though, if you prep too little. Because you can get that wild card, and you will get that wild card thrown at you. And if you prep too little and you're not as experienced as Dan, it's going to set you off.
Like when someone accidentally summons a Baylor demon into your campaign.
For example, you're talking about when the party is level 5 and somebody accidentally summons a Baylor demon. Exactly.
Was it accidental?
Yeah. Yeah, it was off a random table.
It was completely accidental. But that was me as a new DM as well, experimenting with this, what seemed very entertaining magic item that I'd never used before, and I was new to D&D. That was the deck of many things, Daniel. Yeah,
Terry.
Yeah, you know that 25 years in, and I know that now 4.5 years in, but at the time, I wasn't aware. And I was like, oh my goodness, I found this on the internet. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. What was that you summoned? I don't know where that is in it. How do we do this?
No, CR18.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, okay.
But we made it work.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna jump in with my answer before we move on to the next topic. And I do the exact opposite. Strangely enough, I go from the. Everybody always assumes because I come to the table with a giant world map and a pantheon and a Bible that I have written, an 80-page Bible ready to go that I've built from the top down, and I really haven't.
You built from the ground up?
I built from the ground up.
That surprises me.
Yeah, so it surprises a lot of people that when I say that I know who the bad guy is, and I mean I know who the big bad guy is, and I know their top 2 tactics, and I know this one small town. And then I say, okay, how are these tactics affecting this town? And I build from there. The current campaign, or sorry, not the current one, but the previous one that we did takes place in the same world, so sometimes I call it the same one.
And it's on pause. We're hoping to get back to it.
Yeah, but it started off, the very first thing that you guys did was you showed up, you fell out of a portal into this small walled village that was under siege by orcs, and there were like 17 or 18 survivors that were left inside, and they were like Fletchers and shopkeep's daughters and just like useless characters with no supplies, and the town is running out of food, and I went, okay, so what I wanted to do is look at a apocalypse level, like zombie apocalypse level problem in a world where the apocalypse isn't happening. They're just under siege. They're just like, we're running out of food. At what point do we end up going on to cannibalism? How many people have turned to the church and are becoming zealots as a result of this? And I planned all of this stuff out, but I planned the NPCs. And I planned the players more than I planned the world itself. So for me, it's all about people and interactions, especially when I'm going to... The very first thing you do is you get dropped in a town. 9 times out of 10, you start in a town.
Yeah.
So who are the people in that town? Because you're not going to remember the specifics of the layout of a general store, but you may remember the gnome behind the counter that's screaming at you and swearing in gnomish, right? Like, it's more important to have that base than, for me anyway, than it is to have the layout of the buildings. And then my process is I sit down and I do, what maps will we get through? How many encounters will we do in the span of a session? What maps will we get through? And while I'm drawing the maps, I'm coming up with the bad guys, what the stat blocks are, how they're going to use the environment. All my prep work is done while I'm sitting over top of this grid. So for me, it is all about the building the NPCs and kind of knowing the general broad strokes of the politics or the religion, but really the general broad strokes. I didn't know what the names of the gods were until I sat down to write the Pantheon, like 7 or 8 sessions in. At that point, I needed to know what the goddess of death's name was. And so I started doing research on old voodoo gods and African gods and Native American gods, because I wanted really like natural sounding names.
I just want to say this real quick. The way you've done your Pantheon as well is it's bizarre for me with my 25 years experience brain going, oh, there's no real god of war.
No.
It's like...
Yeah. It's like gods of strange things. It's death, but then it's also dreams. But we haven't come across gods
and they're
of
very
love or something.
like sometimes like they're not even like that one thing. They're like weird existential concepts.
Well, yeah, I started with the creation myth because in the beginning there was light. So I need a god of light. And then I need his opposite. I need the god of darkness. Now the god of light is also going to be the god of knowledge. And they're also going to be the god of discovery. And the god of darkness is going to be a god of rest. And is going to be a god of peace. And so I look at it from what things do I associate, what positive things do I associate with it. The god of water is a god of change. Whereas the god of earth is the god of strength. And so there's no god of the hunt. There's no god of the...
You've gone more Native American African with it than like the traditional Roman Greek style.
There's a god or a goddess of everything.
Yeah, because those things were all because these are the creation gods that exist be above Cord, and they created. They never get into where do the gods come from in D&D, right? They just are, or they procreate amongst themselves, and then they make a new god. Where did the first god come from? I wanted to answer that. I've just been playing long enough. I'm like, who made Heronius? So, well, the original gods did. And so all, like, Zeus is a god in my pantheon, and Erroneous and Cord, and, like, they all are. But then there's the upper echelon of gods, the creation gods, that came up with the concepts. And it took them a while. Like, the book itself is about them discovering the concept of change and evolution and time passing. Because at first they don't understand that. Because they hadn't invented time yet. Which is why there's no god of time. All the gods got together and said, now we're going to make time.
That's good. It's like it's very raw, and it's like the gods are learning themselves about concepts that work.
Yeah, and so and there are a lot of mistakes.
Trial and error too. Yeah.
So but I sat down. I had the luxury of doing that because I had a 3-week break between session 7 and 8 back then. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to work on the Pantheon now. But we were already in it to that point. You guys were down the road fighting the Children of Laughter, I believe, at that point. Right. So nothing to do with the gods. I just knew that we were going to get there eventually because the goddess of death is trying to break into this realm for some reason.
Yeah.
I knew why. I have all that broken down in my head. But what is her relationship with the goddess of life? I don't know. I don't know yet. I'm going to sit down and figure that out, and I'm going to start in the beginning. Yeah. I went as big scale as I possibly could. But when I'm actually prepping my sessions, it's from the ground up. Yeah. When I prep the world itself, it's from the top down. And hopefully they marry themselves nicely in the middle.
That's so funny how you guys are completely opposite to what I thought. I thought that you would start big because you enjoy building things. Like, you're like a gardener, you know, like with your start. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's George Martin said that there's gardeners and builders or something like that in like storytelling, and that's kind of how you are, is that you like to build everything up. Whereas Dan, I thought that you would maybe start very small scale and be like, I don't know what's on the other side of this wall. Maybe we'll figure it out as we go. Yeah. So that's just interesting the way you guys are opposite to what I thought. Yeah.
All right, cool. But I want to move on to the next topic now. But first, let's break for a commercial.
Sure.
How cool would it be to hear your company name on this podcast? Pretty stinking cool. It's a Mimic is ready to take our show to the next level. We want to partner with other awesome businesses to share your brand with our listeners. Please email us at info@itsamimic.com for advertising information.
All right, so now I'd like to talk about the concept of plot hooks. Now, Dan, you started to say earlier that in session 0, you need to start having a conversation with your players about what you're going to get into as far as your storyline goes.
Yep.
Did you just drop the die?
I literally just shot the die that I was going to roll across the room.
Yeah.
Hey, look, an extra one.
So, but I want to really dig into that idea of where do you start with your plot hooks? And how do you begin to really pull these ideas out to engage your players a little bit more? Mm-hmm. So let's roll initiative.
Which one was mine again? Oh, wow.
So with my D12, I rolled the highest, proving my point that I'm better than you.
And I am once again going last.
I'd like to point out, so I rolled a 7 in the box. The dice I shot across the room is also sitting on a 7.
Oh, well, at least you're consistent.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk about plot hooks, and really the two different kinds, or the two different sides of looking at this. There's the DM side and there's the player side. So when we're starting off, DMs, we'll
talk about you first because you're pretty. The first thing that you need to do when it comes to session 0, and everyone's building their characters, and they're coming up with, I want to be a rogue that drags a piano along. He's a piano player because he took 1 level in Bard. And you're like, I got a rogue with no strength dragging a piano through this campaign.
Through a desert.
Yeah, what am I going to do with this? Right? You have to keep an ear on this stuff.
You die.
Well, you have to keep an ear on it right from the beginning. You need to know what your players are into. If they're all sitting around joking about, oh yeah, I rolled a high constitution so that my character is going to fart a whole bunch, and that's where they're coming from on this, or there's someone going, oh, I've decided that I'm going to pump 20 points into charisma and tank everything else, so I will be a sex god and be terrible at, and that's not what charisma's for, but that's why they've done it. You need to know what their expectations are coming in, so that you understand the plot hooks that you're going to be able to use to get them. The sex god is not going to give a shit about their honor in battle. They're just not. Yeah. So don't try to tempt them with that. Mm-hmm. Players, though, from the beginning, you also need to be coming at this with the expectation of communication as well. You need to talk to your dungeon master and say, this is what I want. I'm interested in this kind of arc. I'm interested in this kind of storytelling. I'm interested in something that is either funny and stupid and mindless because, honestly, I work 60 hours a week and I just need to turn my brain off for a few hours every Friday. Or I'm looking for something gritty and real. I wanted to play Game of Thrones, right? Let's get into this. Be upfront about that right from the beginning. I think it is so important that everyone gets on the same page, and DMs, be flexible. Here's the big problem that I see when people complain about their dungeon masters. It's because their DM is saying, no, you can't do that. It's this. As you're listening, you should be thinking up about 4 or 5 different ways to try to hook your players. The 2 or 3 that make a whole lot of sense, and 3 or 4 maybe wildcard ideas as well. Right? I always have stuff on the back burner to try to drag people in and see what sparks their interest, which is why I always want backstories out of my players.
Yeah.
You don't have to write me a 12-page novel every time, Dan. However, it is...
Oh, I won't.
No, yeah, but it's super useful for me
still will.
to have a conversation for 3 minutes in a session 0 and say, so what are you looking for? Right?
I find it hilarious that I am the guy who doesn't want to prep a campaign, but when it comes to my characters and my backstories, I am more than willing to drop a 20-page tome on my DM and be like, this is what I'm playing.
Yeah, but you're all about character.
Yeah,
you are a character-based DM as well, right? Yeah. You got a party of 8 people, and you want each of them to have a personal character arc with their own plot hooks and whatnot. Yeah. So Dan, okay, natural segue here. It's your turn. How do you manage all of that? What do you do?
So, one, I encourage my players to give me backstories. I do. Because I am a very player-centric DM. I want... We're all here, like you said, like, we work 60-hour weeks. We work 40-hour weeks. We work hard. We've got families. There's times when we need to come and separate and find enjoyment. And if there's a struggle at the table, if you're not being entertained by it, there's no point. So, like, I try to make everyone at my table happy and entertained, whether it is through the struggle of their character arcs or whatnot, whatever. But anyways, so I request things like backstories. I ask for my players, like, what are your desires, right? Not even like a backstory, like, what are your goals? What are your desires? What is the name of one person who would crush you if they died? I'm just shooting out random examples, right? Like, I want all this little information so that when I'm building my town that I'm going to drop them in, I have maybe a couple little things, a couple ideas where I know I could, well, if they go and talk to, the priests of the lovers, I could trap them in and pull them in some way. And if they never go there, that's fine. I'll find some other way to bring that in, that little plot hook. So,
but do you find you have one plot hook and you're just trying 6 or 7 different ways to drag them in?
No. I'll also kind of follow the player's lead. I think if you're attentive enough to your players, you could actually find they'll lead you a lot in this respect as a DM. So, as an example, I have one character who wanted to play a cleric, but he didn't want to know he was a cleric. He wanted to discover his abilities slowly.
So he was chosen by his god, but didn't know.
Yeah, he wanted to play more of a favorite soul, but as a cleric.
So it didn't have too much of a backstory. He kind of wanted that discovery to come as part of the campaign.
He has a backstory built like of being a clan artisan dwarf and bringing up to this point and wanting to be able to craft the ultimate weapon and learn from who he can. Like, he's got this intricate backstory, but he's thrown in these little like references of like this grand storm or this, thing that happened here where lightning struck as he was striking the anvil or whatever it was. Like, he's thrown these in. And then as we're going through the campaign, I've like populated it with these worshippers of this god who are his, and he's slowly discovering these people.
Nice.
And these holy tomes, he's slowly discovering them and being like, wait, this sounds like something that happened to me.
Yeah.
Or, wait, this item is becoming more powerful in my hand, right? And I'm also a gift-giving DM. I love giving my players as many magic items as I can because I make up my monsters anyway, so who gives a shit?
You guys are both similar on that. And one day we'll talk more about magic items because I am not that way as
no.
much. It should be like your freaking birthday. If you get a magic item from me, it should be the best thing ever.
Yeah, but I like throwing in weird magic items. Like I like throwing in intelligent weapons.
I like that, but I like it when it's super like, oh my god, what does this thing do? Instead of everybody finds one in a room and then we find more in the next one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sorry, I interrupted you.
But I also like, and Adam, you're kind of the same way. You like throwing in these weird, like, they're magic items by definition, but they're not in any way, shape, or form
useful in combat.
So it'll be like, here's a chair that if you say a magic word becomes small enough to fit in your pocket.
Right.
Here's a whistle where if you say a magic word, it's going to blow.
That's it.
Here's a pen that if you set on a piece of paper, it'll record any conversation happening within 10 feet of it.
Or my favorite one was the ivory throne, which gives you advantage to
all the mental stats.
Advantage to all of the mental stats, but it was an ivory throne that was ridiculously heavy and it was stuck inside of a vault and there was no way to get it out. It's like, what are we doing? Yeah. Hilarious.
So when it comes to like really trying to draw my players into the story, I will tempt them with items. I will tempt them with NPCs.
But when it comes to the prep at the beginning, how do you choose ahead of time what to grab?
Here's where I get into trouble because I don't really. As I'm kind of running through things with the player, I'll kind of sense, okay, this guy's getting tired of it. Of stuff happening.
We've been talking for 11 freaking episodes about how you're the guy that doesn't prep, and it's charming and endearing, and sure, we all love you, Dan. But you're also coming from 25 years. Oh yeah, no, I know.
So here's I was about to get to that. Pay attention to what your players are saying, and it doesn't really matter if the thing you throw in there doesn't really follow the rules to the letter. I'm very much a rules as intended rather than a rules as written guy. And listen to your players. Like, this one character was kind of getting a little, I don't know, bored was the word, I guess, but like he was taking longer to talk during his turns, and he was getting really persistent about this one little point that kept on happening over and over. So I was like, okay, well, in the next room, I could give him a hammer that does lightning damage, whatever, and then I can flesh that out after the fact, right? In the next room, I could give a corpse of a barbarian who has the only thing on his body that is not burned and singed is a single belt. And then hopefully my barbarian goes, oh, okay. And I will guide him to it. I'll be like, and there's a corpse of a topless muscular dude who's burned to a singe, but the only thing that is on him that looks pristine is this leather belt with a fist as a belt buckle. Like, I will tailor them towards the players so that they bring it on. Mm-hmm. And then after the fact, if the players latch onto it, I'll be like, okay, now here's why. So as long as I'm making these decisions during the campaign and like making a note of it on my...
Right, but that's what I want to talk about is you have a very organic sense about your prep work. Mm-hmm. And we make a joke.
That's a very nice way of putting it. So
yeah, but it really is organic because you've got 2.5 decades of experience at this point in prepping. So when you say, oh, I don't prep, you've prepped for 25 years. to be able to get to this moment. You don't need to look up the society of a kobold.
No.
You know what it is inherently. You're like, oh, I already know what the pantheon is, so I don't have to prep it.
Yeah.
Right, but
you've given yourself that flexibility.
Right, so you have that. So what you're prepping is, from your sense of experiences, don't worry about it. Put it in there. See what they bite. You're essentially throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks.
Exactly.
And then justifying it after the fact.
Exactly, yeah.
Whereas I'm all about the justification from the beginning. And I will give so many options with justifications. Whichever ones they pick up will... I mean, by the end of the day, by the end of the session, it's the same thing. They have an item, and it does a thing, and here's the reason for it.
Yeah.
I just know what those items are ahead of time and what the justifications are ahead of time, and you're flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, and honestly, it can even... I say I'm a character-driven DM, but I like my humor. I like my lightheartedness in my campaign. So, like, I'll throw in weird
Terry's like, what's that like? We've never had that.
I will throw in weird magic items and weird NPCs just for the laughs.
Well, that's because of contrast, right? You need to. Yeah. You can have the darkest campaign ever, but it only stays dark if you contrast it with moments of humor and moments of light.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
it's just depressing.
It's just depressing all the time. Then that's how, happiness isn't really happiness unless it's come from sadness at some point, But I think, I agree with Adam completely. You're saying that you don't prep, but that 25 years of experience has given you that prep because it's much easier for you to work on the fly.
Yeah.
So I'm closer to... You done? Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm closer to Adam in that I will start to prep from the very beginning. I think a big mistake that newer DMs will make, or very experienced DMs who have seen it all and so are set on the thing that they want to do is, here's the big revelation, you are not listening to what the players are telling you without telling you.
Yeah.
If you're sat at session 0 and everybody sat around the table making dick jokes and doing Archer quotes and things like that, they are telling you that that's the type of fun they like to have together, not a nitty-gritty Westeros, let's get real dark thing. It may come up with questions later on that that's what they want to do, but pay attention to what they're telling you without telling you. If you're sat there and everyone's telling you, if they're sat there and everyone's telling you that they're sick to death of Orlando Bloom as Legolas and they hate super clean elves and all this sort of thing, they don't want to do that super clean high fantasy. Probably not. And I think the mistake that DMs will have is they have this thing in their head that they're so set on that they're not paying attention to what the players are asking for. So that's what I like to do from the very beginning, and then I will give myself multiple options when it comes to plot hooks within the games. For example, if I was going to run an opening session in media res, as we started to talk about earlier, say if it opens up in the middle of a huge battle, for example, I will throw different nuggets out there that the players can bite on if they want to. But ultimately, the climate of the world is the same. This battle is happening no matter what. This army is coming, or this dragon is coming no matter what. But how they navigate that road depends on which plot hook they pick up. They break into a room, for example. There is a screaming mother and some crying children, and they're injured. The captain says, kill them, take the kids. It's up to the player characters what they decide to do. If they make a good decision, lawful, chaotic, good decision, I know that's where they're leaning towards. So my other plot hooks will reflect that type of decision. If they kill them without even thinking about it, and that's what they're enjoying, I know that that's where they're leaning. If they completely ignore that plot hook and they go a little bit further down, I know that that battle is still taking the same shape, but I'll have another little nugget for them to latch onto. So no way am I railroading them. They can pick up on whichever one they want, but the climate of the battle or the world or the campaign is going to happen no matter what. It's just up to them which nuggets they bite on along the way.
Well, and that's, okay, I agree 100%. And I'm just going to rewind a little bit to defend my position on this item creation, because I'm going to flip it over to my NPC creation, okay? Mm-hmm. It's essentially the same thing. I've got all of these different things that I put directly in front of the player, and I say, here you go, interact. And I've done all of this prep work ahead of time. First and foremost, the pro to this, or the con, first of all, is they're not going to use everything that you've prepped, and it's going to feel like a waste of time. The pro is you can take that, reskin it, and use it later.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have less prep work to do for session 20. At this point, there are a lot of enemies where I don't even crack a book open anymore because I've memorized their stats 17 sessions ago. Because I kind of tweaked them, and I know that it's going to be a little bit different. Their AC was mid-range, and they're so on and so forth. I don't need to crack a book. I know what they can do because I've done the prep, much like Dan has in the past. Dan doesn't need to crack a book to run goblins.
No.
Right? And I'm getting now, at this point, to the same level of knowledge base. But when it comes to items and NPCs, everything is there are enough options and you can't do them all, and I do it on purpose to see what do you latch onto. If I have a character or I have a player who doesn't go after the romantic interest plot hook that's sitting there, because NPCs, in my opinion, are more interesting than items. Everyone wants their magic sword, but I would much rather have an underworld contact, for example. But
you enjoy allies. A lot. They come up in your campaigns.
Yeah, a lot of allies. There are a lot of enemies too, but you guys tend to murder the enemies, so you don't ever learn their backstories. No one ever takes captives in my campaigns. So, but when it comes down to these NPCs, I'm looking at who doesn't get chosen. Right? I learned real quick which characters, which players at the table were going to get involved with children NPCs and who wasn't. And it surprised me. I had 2 guys and 2 girls. Both of the guys went, I'm going to go deal with this child NPC and befriend them. And both of the girls went, I don't have time for this shit. Right? I have some murder to get done. And it flew in the face of the stereotypes. And that was one of the very first things that I learned.
It's because I'm a dad, dude.
No, I'm talking about the previous campaign. But I learned real quick that the stereotypes are usually completely ass backwards when it comes to role playing.
Yeah. You can't sit there and expect anything really from your players when that. Like, throw the option. And this is why I just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Kind of the same way, because your players are going to surprise you. No matter how much prep, how much anything else you do, your players will undoubtedly surprise you.
People will surprise you. Yeah. You're right. I could have told you that one of those players would have no interest in somebody else's kids right from the start. She'd be like, you keep that self-inflicted injury away from me. That's on you.
But where you're throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks and saying, okay, these are my tools. How am I going to use them? I've already done the prep work on it so that when they say, here are the tools, I say, great, now let's do this. Because I run 8 to 12 hour sessions, right? And I have to have the answer in hour 2 because I don't have the option to have a break after hour 4 for a week to come back and do it again. A lot of people don't have the luxury of playing all day Sunday like we do, where they get 2 or 3 hours every 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. So you have the option in the middle to be like, oh, by the way, that's a cursed item. Yay! I need to know, and I need to know now, and it needs to affect people immediately. So for longer sessions, it's important for me to have my prep work done early. Now, you touched on something real quick, Terry. The last thing that I want to touch on when we're talking about plot hooks is you said talk about starting in media res.
Yeah.
For those of you at home who don't understand what in media res means, it's think of a James Bond film where you start in the middle of the action. You don't know why. You just know that they're good guys and bad guys. We're rooting for this guy over here. He's doing this awesome shit, and he's going off the wall on this, and it's absolutely crazy and it's fun. And then we cut to the opening credits, and then we get some exposition. It's a great way of hooking people. We see it in books. We see it in movies. We see it in TV shows all the time. The first episode of Lost was just a plane crash and the insanity of it.
Yeah.
Right? And it just dragged everybody in. Say what you will about the last episode of Lost. We can put that aside. But the first episode of Lost was a great way to draw people in. And it did. By the millions, it drew people in. But there's also the idea of railroads and sandboxes and fun houses. Is there a different way that you guys prep for each of these things? A different way when you say, hey, I'm going to do session 1 and I'm going to do a railroad. I'm going to do session 1, it's going to be a sandbox. I'm going to do session 1, it's going to be a fun house. Do you prefer, for which one are you using in media res? Are you starting off with a 2-page story that everyone has to read ahead of time to get a flavor for the campaign? What are you doing for your prep work?
Yeah. So for me, I'm more because I know that first session, you never get as much done as you think you're going to get done. So I've learned this over time that I won't railroad people, but I will give them a limited amount of options or a limited amount of options that they think they have.
Yeah.
We've been, Lost is a great example. We've been shipwrecked. We're on the beach. Okay, well, now essentially you have 3 directions. You go straight ahead into the jungle, or you go north up the coast, or you go south down the coast. Yeah. So now I have 3 directions that I know they're going to go. So I know that there is a village to the north, and there is a village to the south, and there's some jungle stuff in front of them. a little cheat that I will probably have is that the village to the north is the same as the village to the south, but it's up to you which way you go. We'll do some random encounters along the way. It's just in my mind, either it's the same village and you have essentially decided whether you go north or south, whether you landed a mile this way or you landed a mile the opposite way.
All right, you know what? Hold on. I retract my question. Altogether. We'll talk about railroads and sandboxes and stuff in another episode.
Sure.
Okay. What you just hit is by far more interesting than anything that I have prepped for this session or this episode.
That was an accident.
Yeah, pure accident. Yeah, it's a mimic. You never know what you're going to get. All right, so here's what I want to talk about. Do you prescribe to the method of the false agency?
Sometimes.
When?
Not always. I will do it early on. Early on, where I don't want the players to ever feel like they're railroaded. But I will do it in a way that they don't realize that they are necessarily. So exactly what I just said. You can go north or south. You're going to get to that village no matter what, because I need that first session to give you that plot hook and to get you moving. Or you may go completely against that and you may go deeper into the jungle. I'll have something prepped for that. But you can only prep so much in those early sessions. When it gets later on, you know roughly where people are going. We're making this big pirate ship mover up through the river or something like that. That's easier, but it's more chaotic at the beginning. So I will take away some agency at first.
Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, no.
By the buckets.
Dan, I want you to know
yes,
before you
by the
get to this point, Dan, I want you to know that my goal in my DMing career is to get to the point where I am comfortable enough to do very little prep work like you, because that experience allows me that flexibility. So I make fun of your methods, but it actually is a goal for me.
It shouldn't be. I
Okay.
think there. Just real quick, like there should be an amount of prep that does happen that I don't do. Like I understand that I under prep. Like my experience, whatnot, that's one thing, and it makes my prep work easier. It shouldn't mean that my prep work is, quicker and I get to my point faster, but I still do it.
Okay.
I'm lazy, so I don't. So when it comes to like these ideas of using false agency with the players, where like, you guys have this decision, it's a very important decision. It's not really important to do it.
You can choose one of these 3 chests, but only one. They all have the same hammer.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I close it and open another one. Oh, crap.
I do that a bunch. No, the other 2 are mimics. I do that a bunch, and I don't know, man. Like it for me, I don't mind being railroaded, and like even if it's you are going down this path, I don't care. I'm just there for the fun of it, right? And I actually find sandboxes a little bit frustrating in a sense. Because
Dan gives me a lot of shit 'cause you guys are running a sandbox campaign right now.
I get what's the term? I get overwhelmed by my choice.
Analysis paralysis.
Actually,
I get
agree with you on that.
right?
Yeah,
like,
sometimes it
if
is
there's
overwhelming.
so much going on, and in Adam's world where there is something happening in every single little point. Me being who I am, I want to experience it all. So, like, when we spend 3 weeks in the Feywild, completely separated from his map, I'm sitting there scratching because I'm like, what is happening in Markentown? What's happening at the Big Maw? And, like, when he hands us the thing and says, oh, yeah, that's from Andorth Village, it's destroyed. I go, how? Because this wasn't the way it was before.
Dan's got FOMO. You've got fear of missing out.
Oh, yeah, dude. I want to experience it.
I've never heard that before. FOMO. I love it.
Yeah.
So, he's a FOMO mofo.
I'll take it. I'll take it. So I will throw that at my players all the time because I want them to experience what I want them to experience.
I know what you're saying.
Right? So when I fly off the seat of my pants, I know like in the next couple rooms somewhere there's going to be a kobold-like creature covered in ash. Sure.
Sometimes it is overwhelming though, because sometimes it's when there's so much happening, you're like, what are we supposed to be doing?
Oh, yeah.
Or someone comes in and it's this person, this NPC, and you're like, who's that again? Because for 3 weeks you've been in the Feywild or Shadowfell or something, and you're like, what was that dwarf from before?
Oh, exactly.
And you get them mixed up.
And sometimes I paint myself into a corner with my method, which is why I would say don't do what I do. Like, prep a little bit, because if you do what I do, you'll paint yourself in a corner. And for me, I just kind of hand wave and play, oh yeah, no, I forgot about that. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's this way. Right? And then that gets me out of painting myself in a corner. But you'll paint yourself in a corner where you'll be like, the village to the north is full of undead. The village to the south is full of, an elf-dwarf conflict.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to the south. Well, there goes all your plans for undead.
Yeah.
Because you can't exactly just be like, okay, it's the same skin.
But what we're saying is you have the ability where you can handwave or adapt very quickly. But for newer DMs who, even kobolds we were talking about earlier, we know that they're small, they're not very intelligent at all, that they rely on traps. You may not know that if it's your first time. And so when the players kind of go off the rails and kind of go a little bit crazy, and you have to be very flexible and adapt quickly, if you don't have those basic fundamental tools on D&D, it's very difficult. And you can
I also like to drop like irresistible plot hooks on things. Like, here is beloved NPC that because you guys chose the wrong choice, like you guys went off the rails to this other section, I'm going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to kill that person and throw them at that location, right? Which will cause them to be like, get back on the rails because they know not to mess with me.
Right. Okay. Now that's a very different way of DMing from what I do. So to answer my own question, now that I've listened to you guys talk for a little bit, and I've been able now to come up with my own answer.
You don't just randomly kill NPCs?
No, absolutely not. There's a reason for everything. So the way that I do it is I sandbox it, but I come up with the whole world ahead of time. So I'm like, I start in a very narrow perspective, and I slowly build myself out. I am building out far faster than you guys will ever get to in a session.
Right.
So, session 1, I've got the town with 17 NPCs. By session 2, I've got 4 towns, and each one of them has 30 NPCs. By session 6, I have a world map. Right, it's so beneficial for me to have a month and a half of prep ahead of time because I prep so quickly. And if this is the horse village and everything they do is horses, then the next one over is going to be what's the next logical step on the map? It'll be a logging village because they need lumber to build wagons for the horses. Okay, we need enough area to have a grazing field and miles and miles and miles. So the horses are wild. What's on the other side of that? Okay, well, there's going to be some sort of barbarian village on the far side, but they're not there all the time. They're only here during the harvest season for
and you're just coming up with this.
I'm like, just spitballing shit off the top of my head, right? Yeah. It's a go. I'm not married to any of it, but I'm going. So when you guys decide you're going to head over to this barbarian village, well, you never went off to that logging village. That logging village is there. That mayor is still corrupt. And he is still murdering people in order to maintain his corruption. So if you don't show up there for 7 or 8 sessions, when you should have shown up there earlier, in my opinion, as a DM, I'm like, oh, they should go there first. And you don't, because you're players, and I hate you. But you go off in the other direction. And so this lumber village now has fewer citizens. And you're like, well, wait a minute, what's happened? Like, oh, now I have to come up with this whole plot hook about a murderer. Instead of just one person died. That was weird. I don't slow roll it anymore. Now I'm in a murder mystery. I dropped you guys into the middle of it.
Yeah.
Okay? And so by knowing my NPCs, by building the world, I allow you to sandbox, but the world moves on without you. So I always like having the feeling of what you do matters because the world moves on without you. If you interject yourself, you will interrupt the DM, my own designs, and therefore affect the world. What is the point of saving the world if you don't give a shit about it?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's always where I come from first. I'm big on getting that concept of your agency mattering more than anything that I've come up with. So if you say, hey, I want to do this, as long as it logically makes sense within the world, yeah, do that. Absolutely. If you are a dwarf and you want to marry the elven princess, we'll find a way. We will find a way, because that's weird, and she was betrothed to the elf prince from the other kingdom over there, and now she's fallen in love with you, and I never would have come up with this on my own. This is fantastic now. What does this do? Does this create a warfare between the two, or does it bring them together? Does it create warfare with the other elven kingdom? Right? Like, I don't know, because you have injected this in here. I didn't know you were going to go there, but the option is there because I understand that there is a princess and she is betrothed and and so I've done all of this prep work and it's so sandboxed, and if you guys don't do that and she gets married off screen. You come back and she's been married to the prince now. Who gives a shit? She's married now.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't miss anything, right? But you missed the opportunity that you create or don't create, and so I hope that you are doing the thing that's most interesting to you.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why I would, just harkening back to the earlier topic here, like, that's why I would encourage DMs, whether you're new or old, to get information from your players and get that stuff from your players to figure out what points from their backstory, from what their desires are, you need to hit to bring them towards that, right?
And players...
Give your DM stuff.
Yeah. Give them
loose ends.
And not just loose ends. As much fun as that is, but yes, there was the bully from my hometown that went off in the same direction 3 years before, and he's made a name for himself, but we haven't met yet. And sure, great, okay, so that's out there somewhere. Sure, loose end. But give them. I want to do an arc where I lose faith in my god. I want to do an arc where I am a rogue and I lose my fingers.
Ooh.
I want to do an arc. So come up with I want to be a blind wizard. Right? Like, whatever it is, come up with the most interesting thing that you can think of, and it's often a flaw.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that probably another episode as well.
Sure.
But come up with whatever it is and give it to your DM, and DMs be open to the idea of taking it and using it, because this is the plot hook they want.
Yeah. I would add to that as well as DMs is that whole concept of help me help you, giving, because every group is different, every DM's different, giving them like permission, quotations, to pull that out of players who may be showing up to your session 0 like, I don't know what I can do, like I don't understand this, help me, what is good, give me ideas, ask me questions, so help them help you as well.
Yeah. And also players, like, have some trust in your DMs with this as well.
Yeah, I know this is something we cover a lot, but it's valid. It's important.
Like, if you're giving your DM like this basket of things that they could go and play with, expect them to go and play with it, but don't expect them to play with it the way you necessarily want them to.
Yeah.
And be okay with that. Trust that person at the end of the table to do well with it. If there's something you very specifically want to hit, be clear.
Or don't want. As we talked
clear
about in episode 9, right?
Yeah.
With boundaries and whatnot. Be clear. If you want to go in like, oh yes, people are getting tortured and I need to go rescue them, but I don't want to see the torture chamber, thank you very much.
Yeah. You just made me realize something there, Dan, I think gets forgotten by players who played for a long time, is that new players don't realize that is kind of what they're supposed to do. Like, they'll make their character. This is my character. Okay, now we're going to play your story. Let's go. But it works. You have to come back a bit. Okay, give me something to give you a story from.
I've got a friend who honestly looked down on D&D for years and like looked down her nose and said, "This is bullshit." And she's recently been convinced by her boyfriend to play, and she's having just a shit ton of fun. And she's absolutely loving it.
Mode.
Yeah, absolutely. But she rolled her backstory, and
she rolled her backstory.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yep. So she rolled for backstory and background and ideals and flaws and traits and the whole thing. So she's coming at this character that is all randomized, and she says, "Okay, now that I've rolled that, I've done that, and I'm just going to go play in the field and fight dire wolves now, right?" And so the backstory doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And so they're playing a very, very basic version of 5th Ed, which really is initiative to initiative, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how they're playing. I want so badly to encourage her to be like, no, come up with interesting things to bring you back. But if she's having fun, she's having fun.
Yeah.
And that DM obviously says or knows well enough that this person only wants to roll dice. That's enough plot hook for some people.
Yeah.
Right? So as much as we're coming up with these big, intense theories on game crafting, also there's the other side of it too. Some people just need to swing a sword.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, we have the player in our group because we've been talking a lot about exploration and fleshing out stories and things recently in the part of the game that we really enjoy. But then we have that one player in our group where it's like we go on the road and she's like, "On the road again?" Because her favorite part of the game is just doing random encounters.
Yeah.
Walking down the road and a werewolf comes out. She's like, "Yes!"
No consequence murder. Yeah.
I didn't even expect that from that person. Like, there's no way you can plan for that. We have this huge story arc to go. And she's like, That's great. Totally paying attention. Love it. When are we going on the road again? Because I really like slashy, smite.
Do you have any idea how difficult it is as a DM to come with level 14 random encounters?
Exactly.
It's insane trying to do that.
I know. This is something we'll talk about again in the future, I'm sure. But when you're level 14, you're higher level, sure. But you're still occasionally just going to come across a couple of wolves. It's just going to happen. It's just learning to make that encounter more interesting.
Yeah, I would say that you're not, though. Those wolves will take one look at you and peace out.
Yeah, maybe.
They're just done with you.
But I think, or you'll still come across very low level creatures and NPCs and things like that are not necessarily, they are not within the tier of the game that you're within.
Yeah.
But they can affect it somehow.
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke a few episodes back about you guys were high level, you ran into like level 1 human bandits. They're just like, okay, we're sorry. This was a mistake. But please don't execute
But it was great. It was one of my favorite encounters. I bring it up all the time.
But yeah, if you're a level 14 druid and you run into a dire wolf, you are not fighting it, you are taming it.
Yeah.
Because you are a level 14 druid.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, you're right, there are ways around it. Let's do a shout out before we move on to topic 3. So, Terry, did you have someone that you wanted to...
I want to shout out an Instagram page that I like to follow and I get a lot of good content from is Critical Dice.
Oh, no, it's not
and at Rusty Styrofoam. Yeah. Of course. But Critical Dice, I find that page is incredibly informative. It gives me lots of great ideas for the game, and it's just one of my go-to pages. When we do our shout-outs, we're very genuine with this. We take a lot of time to think about who we're going to call out, and at Critical Dice, for sure, at Instagram, check that page out. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And just so everyone at home is aware, I think we mentioned this once and never did it again.
Yeah.
Our shout-outs are really community-based.
Yeah.
Like, it's people that we like, that we're excited about working with or seeing the things that they've done. If you yourself at home are listening to this or in your car or whatever, you're like, hey, you know who deserves a shout-out? You know, it's my DM's birthday or whatever coming up. I'd like to do a shout-out on a podcast. Send us a message. Yeah. It's cool. We'll do that. We're not pretentious like that.
If it's a birthday specifically, give us some time. Like, we're recording this
months in advance.
It's so, not 1 a.m. Tuesday morning. The podcast is going out in an hour. That's not how we do this. We pre-record them. Or if you write PDF documents, or if you come up with cool subclasses or something like that, let us know about it. We'll take a look at it, and if we like it, we'll give you a shout out.
Yeah. And even if it's like we mentioned a couple days ago, like Dungeon Keep. Yeah, those guys, like, they make fun little spell card holders and dice bags and all these other things.
Oh, and they give us coins too, which is just fantastic.
The coins are awesome.
So anyway, if you have stuff like that, you're like, hey, I'm sitting on a significant portion of these things that I'm not moving. Flip them over to us. Let us know. Contact us, and we'll give you a review. Like, we want to be part of the D&D community.
Yeah,
and we want you guys to be part of it as well. So let's continue to give more shout-outs.
Be one big happy family.
Exactly. Yeah, those coins are awesome. Just to go back to the coins real quick, I know we don't use them as coins. We use them as markers in our world map. But I just love the fact, and they're correct. They're the correct shapes and colors of the coins. I
think it's the copper piece is like a triangle. You just want to take it and throw it at Adam sometimes and see if I can embed it in his forehead when he makes me do bad things as a character.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So. You can go find Dungeon Keep and get weapons. No, Critical Dice.
Critical Dice on Instagram. Yeah, great page. Really love it.
Absolutely fantastic. All right, let's move on to the last thing. I want to talk about starting locations. We've talked a lot about kind of our plot hooks and our prep methods and whatnot, but let's talk about our first setting. Mm-hmm. And before we get into it, let's roll initiative again.
Let's roll it. Oh, put my D20 in my pocket.
I'm going last.
Oh, I'm going first.
I rolled an 11. This D12 is really rocking it for me. I want you to know that.
I botched.
You're killing it. I get to go first.
Natural one.
Once every blue moon, as is tradition for you, though.
All right. So let me explain, Terry, before you get started, what I mean by this. Taverns and starting locations are so important, specifically taverns. And the reason that they're so important is because this is our touchstone at the very beginning, especially for new players who've never been in the world before. What does it mean to start in the campaign? Where do you go from here? How do you get your first quest? How do you meet the rest of the party members? And it's really the introduction. And as much as the story is beginning, middle, and end, the beginning and the end of a D&D story is one session each, and everything else is middle, right? So it's so important to have this beginning moment. Taverns are great for that because it's a social area where people can interact with the world around them, and see different people from different walks of life. I myself have probably 2 or 3 meals a week in a bar. That's just me. I often have lunch at a pub.
I love it too.
Right? So it's not outside the realm of possibility. People aren't going to meet in a wizard's tower for the first time. That may be a little bit more difficult to.
No, it makes perfect sense that a group of people would be meeting in a tavern.
Yeah.
I love that trope. I love it.
But I want to talk about what are some other inspirations. What are the other reasons that we go to taverns in D&D or inns or however you want to flavor it, and what are other options that can still kind of fit those slots?
Right.
So
okay, I will go outside of taverns a little bit, but I think the problem is where some people get sick of the whole tavern idea is because they don't know where to go with it. So I say instead of moving outside of that, we all meet in a tavern idea, pay more attention to what is actually going on in the tavern. So what I mean by that is you are essentially now have everybody walled in, and you have infinite possibilities about what could be going on in there. So a tavern is a place where a lot of people meet, some very unsavory characters. So when you're starting your first session, it can be as simple as roll a perception check. There's so many people there. Somebody, because, shocker, you're not the only people in the world that steal from other people, somebody could be trying to steal from you. You may overhear a conversation about somebody smuggling something. You may hear somebody trying to plan a murder. You may notice that there appears to be some kind of trapdoor. You may try to go to the tavern to meet there, and that was where your party was supposed to meet, and the tavern is on fire, or the tavern has been destroyed. So if you want to go with that classic meet in a tavern because it's easy to start the campaign, pay more attention to what the infinite amount of possibilities could be when you get in there. Same as if you want to go outside of it. Maybe you just meet on the road. Maybe you're at a campsite. I kind of started our last campaign before the time of Dan, where you started the campaign at a campsite, but it was not your campsite. You came across somebody else's campsite because there are more adventurers out there.
If you remember correctly, I missed the first session.
Yes, that's right.
So I showed up, and it was like, all right, so guys, when we were in the tavern, how do we meet? And Terry looks at me and goes, tavern? No. You guys were walking down the road. You came upon a campsite. I'm like, oh,
why? You met at somebody else's campsite.
Why are we together? And he said, because the module says that.
That's right. Because the module says he probably wanted 3 parts of that module, and I kept the same.
Yeah,
so I was trying to learn the game. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a big fan of the tavern trope. Only because it almost inevitably ends up with the tavern burning down, almost without fail.
Do you know what that says to me though, Dan? Because I know you kind of want to go on this. That says to me that the players you've given them that open world where it's like you meet in a tavern, and they went, "What the hell are we supposed to do?" So use something within the tavern. There's 200 people in that tavern. They're all planning, plotting, stealing. You can go anywhere. Yeah. You have 25 plot hooks right there. So don't be scared to start in a tavern, but just think about the fact that you're not the only people in that tavern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I rolled second. The thing that I like about taverns is the fact that you have a lot of travelers that are just passing through as well. And that's a really big, important aspect of, especially early stages D&D, is exploring the world. You're going to run into people that are holding maps. You're talking about there are 200 people in the tavern. I mean, that's a big tavern, especially medieval times.
Exactly.
But
it's a nightclub. Yeah. It's a club. Yeah. DJ Half Orc is on the decks.
Okay.
It's like that band from Scott Pilgrim. Rage, pain.
What's that?
Everything sucks.
What's the name of that band? Sex Babam. That's the best name for a band ever. We are Sex Babam.
So I've completely been derailed now. No, so it's important for you to be in this place where there are people that are traveling, that are passing through, that are going to head from one city to another, to kind of give you an idea without there being exposition of this is the map. These are the cities. You have someone say, "Oh yeah, I'm heading from Newport over to Old Port."
Yes,
whatever it is, they are moving from one area to another, and so you're kind of getting a flavor of a person that would kind of be heading in that direction, or why they're going there. I'm heading over to the old part of town or to the kingdom to the north because my very rich uncle died in the metropolis there. Oh, okay, so there's Metropolis up north. And that's it. You're dropping these pieces of flavor in the world by having all of these NPCs that are passing through.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that the very first thing that you do in most campaigns is a social encounter and then an exploration encounter before you ever get to the combat.
Right.
And most people think of D&D as being combat. Now, you can open it up, as we said before, with an in media res style. But taverns are so stereotypically good for this because it is a place where people are consistently mingling and talking with each other, and there's stuff happening. You can just move over to another table and have a radically different conversation.
Yep. Go gambling, play cards or something.
Yeah, but I absolutely love the idea that a tavern really has 4 different places in it as well, the average tavern. And it's the inn portion upstairs where there's rooms. There's the gambling in the back. There's the kind of the public area where there's tables and a bar.
The lounge.
Yeah, right.
And a stage with a bard who's telling some story.
DJ
well,
Halfwork.
I don't even always have the bard necessarily, but I will always have...
DJ Halfwork?
No, and every tavern has this. They have the shadowy figure sitting in the darkness. Right? And so you have that. There's something to do for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's another aspect of the tavern that's important.
What you just got me with there, Adam, is you said you start with a role player in an exploration situation before you get to combat, and it made me realize right then when you said it, if you miss that, you shoot straight to combat, which is the tavern burning down.
Yeah.
If you don't open up with that,
you're saying a lot of campaigns don't start with combat. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
but that's because you missed the role-played exploration. So it's like,
well, no, the tavern's burning down because someone messed up the role-play encounter, took offense, and is like, I'm just going to throw this torch directly into this barrel of
can we just take a second and also do a secondary shout out to all of the pyromancers that are in freaking D&D.
Thank you.
And it's not just the abjurers, right, or the conjurers that are producing flames, right? That's not where we're going with this. I'm talking about every rogue with a pack of matches, right?
Every angry barbarian with a torch.
If you've got a bard and a rogue in the same party, you're in for a good time. Okay? Don't let those two sit together.
So someone's getting fucked and someone's getting fucked.
Yes, but
there's our two.
Also, when you talk about exploration as well, because you mentioned how you could just hand them a map and be like, here's Newport, here's Oldport, as you kind of said. But you use the role play and as part of the exploration.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That draws the players in there. Instead of just saying, okay, here's your map, where do you want to go? You're using the role play as part of the exploration to describe where the towns are, describe where the cities are, describe what's going on in them. Oh, what news from the north? Oldport is burning down and blah, blah, blah. And you may drop in a name from someone's backstory straight away.
Yeah, and you can do that, like, if you're starting Storm King's Thunder and you've decided to start in a tavern for whatever reason, and the giants are on the move, right? And that could just be the rumor in the tavern.
Yeah.
Like, you're playing a giant campaign before you sit down.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that, but they don't want to go 4 or 5 sessions before they run into the first giant. They want to hear the rumblings ahead of time. Somebody walks in, 3 guys walk in carrying a monstrous sword. It takes 3 of them to carry. And they plunk it down on the bar and say, guess what we just killed? Right? Like, that's a cool way to start a campaign.
I love those taverns on the road as well. They don't necessarily need to be in the towns. Like Game of Thrones style, there's like the taverns on the King's Road and stuff, because that's where you meet the travelers. Yeah, or those types of plot. 3 guys walk in the bathroom, 2 guys walk out.
Yeah.
Boom, there's your plot hook straight away. Or you can ignore it and go gambling.
Yeah.
I personally, I'm like I said earlier, I'm not a huge fan of the tavern just because it's a trope that for me is a bit overdone.
Mm-hmm.
I like pulling people more into the city proper,
right?
But why? What are you taking? What from a tavern is necessary for you to take into whatever your initial encounter is?
I just want to have something that pulls the party together as a party, because typically in my games, your party doesn't start as a party. You start as a group of individuals who I want to organically make part of a party.
I think that's a lot of campaigns.
And that's a lot of campaigns. So I find the tavern, it's good for that. It's the old guy running into the tavern going, I need help. And the 4 adventurers at the table go, well, we'll do it.
No, 3 of them do, and one says, why should I?
Yeah.
Right? How much?
And how much? Yeah.
There's that. Beauty and the Beast, right? Where he runs in the tavern with Gaston and stuff. Yeah.
I like forcing my players' hands. There is in the Rise of the Rune Lords campaign for Pathfinder, it starts off at a festival, and you start this entire thing like doing festival games and doing who can drink water from this disgusting pond. Like a aquarium thing, like it's all of this other stuff, and then goblins attack, and now you have your party all in different spots in this courtyard, trying to deal with several different goblins all attacking.
Right. Okay, but here's my question, because you started off, it's social encounters, and you're exploring the festival, right? So you're still hitting those two big things. What are the similarities? What are the things that you would have in a tavern encounter that you also have in that, or also have in your own personal exploring the city? Or what are the touchstones that when someone is prepping a session 1 for the first time and they've never DM'd before, what are the touchstones that you really need to be able to hit, I guess is the question.
All you need is a unifying goal for the party. I don't like all of the other stuff is gray noise. It's all white noise. Sorry, like all of that stuff is kind of just fluff that you could throw in, flavor a little bit of things to add interesting aspects of it. But it could be whatever it is. The only thing you need is that one unifying...
The call to action.
The call to
action.
action.
So you're saying the town festival where there may be a three-legged race, so the bard and the rogue, they get tied together to compete in the three-legged race, and that's when the goblins attack.
Yeah, exactly.
So now
right?
these two strangers are forced to work together.
Exactly.
Because they're tied together.
Or there's a break-in at the stables, and the horses are all gone. So now your druid and your ranger have to go and wrangle these spooked horses that are running through the town and trampling people. Like, there's so many different things you can do. If there's a call to action that brings all of the party members together, that's the only thing you need. What its surrounding thing is...
I would disagree with that. And I disagree with it for... I've got an example that will be personal to you, Dan. In your campaign, you have my character, Terry doesn't know this, my character, an NPC, and one other person... who was a lieutenant in the guard, is now a captain. I joined the militia, right? That was a part of...
Oh, your character's a
captain.
Yeah.
No, my character joined the militia and is following someone else's character who's a captain in the town guard, right?
Yeah.
So, and we've formed a militia, and my character's like, hey, we're a militia, yeah, let's do this. And the NPC's like, yeah, let's do it. And everyone else is like, no, man, I'm not a part of your militia. I don't give a shit, and you can't make me. And a lot of the times, we are justifying... We're in, like... Session 8, and we are justifying, why are you coming too? Why is everyone on this mission together? And we had this big, like, inciting moment, this incident where the town got half destroyed and everybody rescued everybody else, and then we sat there afterwards and went, well, we've rescued them.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, see you later.
Right, and I mean that...
But for a new
players
DM,
are players. Like
right?
that,
But for a new DM,
happen.
how do you handle that? I understand that with you with 25 years of experience, you go, all right, yes, you're correct. Everyone has gone this way. All of the NPCs are now refugees.
I would just outside of the game talk to my people and be like, you guys are a party. Behave like one.
But when you are a new DM,
oh no, that's the way I would do it as a new DM
with new players who would say, what's a party and how do we behave like one?
I would
people
say
know what a party
for
is.
me. I would say you have to start the thread of why the players should continue to work together before the original one is finished. So it takes a little bit of thought time, but we have that first mission where you're wrangling up the horses, whatever it is. Before that has been completed, there needs to be a reason. Something else needs to happen that keeps them going so that you're threading these reasons to stay together.
And usually what I'll do is I'll have that one aspect of a person in the town or like authority figure in the town come to be like, you four did well together. I need you four to go do this. I'll give you money.
Yeah, so you kind of
right. So I'm trying to be like, okay, you four, and like I'm forcing them into a party.
So a lot of times you use an authority figure or a quest giver, that's another thing that's consistent in taverns is quest givers. This is what I'm trying to hit here, Dan, because you sitting here on the podcast saying no, none of this is worth anything, and it's all bullshit and flavor and whatnot doesn't help the people at home.
No.
So what are the things,
guys? I'm going to stop you both right here because I'm going to stop you. Stop. Because I understand what each of you is saying, but you guys are talking about different things. So what you're trying to say is all of the important things that happen within the tavern. Yes, there's the insightful event. Yes, there's the call to action. But that whole, hi, my name is, this is me, this is my character, and this is who I am. That meeting, if you do the insightful event, the call to action outside of the tavern, when do you do that bit? And it'll happen after the encounter.
Because it's still important for... The characters may all be in the same party, and they all may have 10 years of history together. But the players don't necessarily know what the other characters are. Yeah. Right? So, me over here, I don't know what Dan's wizard is. Okay? My character knows, but I don't. So, we still need to have that introduction. So, when do we do that? If we're not doing the standard tavern touchstones, and you want to start in media res, which is what I think you're saying, Dan, right? Is you start off with the inciting action hits, and it's combat from the beginning, or not read from the beginning, but it's before necessarily understanding the map of the world or whatever it is it's laid out. When do you do that then? When can a new DM or new players expect to hit that? How important is it to hit it early?
Well,
I guess
you want to hit all these things at session 1. You want to get it all out of the way. So like you're going to want to come in if you're doing what I'm doing and you are pulling just that insightful act out of the tavern, you're still going to need to have that moment where your party, calming down from the bloodlust, is going to sit down and talk to each other and be like, oh yeah, by the way, my name's Oscar, I'm a half-orc barbarian, how you doing?
Okay, and do you think that it is enough to just do it in meta, like from a meta perspective? Or you say, hey look, you all live in this world, here's the world map that you all freaking know.
Do I think it's enough? Yes. Would I recommend you go further into it? Yes. Right? I think it's enough for you to sit across the table and be like, hey Steve, who are you playing? Oh, well, I'm playing my half-elf paladin. All right, cool, Steve. Awesome. Anything we need to know about him? Well, he really likes kittens. Cool. He's a paladin of kittens. And we move on. But it's better to do it like in roleplay. Like sit your guys down around a campfire or whatever it is. Like calming down before they get pulled into the next plot hook that you could also do in a tavern. But before they do that, you could say, okay, guys, you have a moment. Introduce yourselves in character to each other.
I think, and it can happen very naturally. For example, Dan, if you really were a wizard, and I had never met you before, he is in many ways,
and he lives on the coast.
But if for whatever reason, goblins attacked our very fancy studio here, and we had to fight them off together, but I'd never met you before, and you made flames appear from your hands, I'm probably going to bring that up when the goblins are dead and be like, hey, those are some interesting tricks you had there.
Yeah, right. And these are all things you could do. And like,
so to take it back to the tavern for a second here. Okay, there are the social introduction to, or there's the introduction socially to all of the different characters. There's usually a quest giver that tends to happen in the tavern. There is it's a social environment. Normally, you
there's
don't need
two
to
or
have
three important NPCs that you want the party to get used to and keep coming back to, like a merchant or the bartender or the bard or that seedy underworld contact or the buxom barmaid or whatever it is.
Yeah, so when you have the tavern that's checking off all these boxes, if you move to another location like a festival, like you said, then we need to identify which boxes aren't checked yet and make sure we check them.
Yeah.
In our prep work, right?
Exactly,
so as DMs and as players, when it's like, oh hey, we killed the goblins, now it's time to give introductions. Don't sit there and be like, oh yeah, no, my guy's name is George Optimus Prime. I don't give a shit about any of you, and let's just go murder some goblins. You're not helping anybody. Yeah. Right? Help the other people around the table and help your DM. Right?
So what are the boxes that the DM needs to ensure that we're checking off within that first session?
So I think
so not first encounter, but first session.
Within the first session.
I think if we separate these a little bit into, these are the things that need to be hit and these are the things that you should probably address.
Yeah.
Like these are two separate columns.
Sure, yeah.
So like for me, the ones you need to hit, establish a couple NPCs. Like, get your players invested in the town or the townspeople in some way, shape, or form.
Some roots or something they can go back to.
Yeah, give them some roots. I kind of made the mistake of blowing up the town, but I saved a lot of the NPCs. So, a lot of my players in my group are invested in several of the NPCs. Introduce your party to each other. Right? And that's going to be a big one, right? Like, you don't want to get to session 5 and be like, oh, wait, your name's Oscar? What? With a K? That's weird.
Oscar.
Yeah, right?
But I think that's something, just to stay on that one real quick, because I mentioned it earlier. That's one which people think is awkward, but think reality. Let's use Game of Thrones as the example again, because there's so many NPCs in that show that are meeting each other on the road. They're getting tied in
and
together.
They all look the same because everyone's dirty.
That's true. But those introductions are happening all the time, and they're very natural. If you do get into a combat or a situation with somebody, you will naturally introduce yourself afterwards, because this person just made something blow up. This person was praying halfway through the battle, and this person, OMG, just turned into a freaking bear. I'm going to ask questions after that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw someone do on Instagram, I'm totally going to rip this off, is get the Hi, My Name Is name tags for your players around the table. Put their character name in there, as well as their race and class.
Nice.
And that will help in session one, kind of break that ice without having to necessarily break that ice.
Yeah.
Right? So it'll smooth things over a little bit. Because I will remember that Dan ran around and used oil and fire to murder goblins as opposed to a chain.
Yeah.
Right? Like, whatever it is, I'll remember what he did and how he did it, but I won't remember why or who he is, right? No. Because I'm sitting here across the table looking at Dan. So having that character introduction is important. I would say that another one, besides the character introduction and the NPCs, is the concept of the flavor of the world you're in, whether or not...
Set the tone.
Yeah, set the tone. That's a really good way to say it. Whether or not it's steampunk or gothic horror or whatever it is.
High fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Whatever style that you're doing, if you're going to play an Eberron campaign and you've chosen it or you're starting in the Underdark, feel it from session 1. Yeah. Right? Know that you are specifically there.
It's actually a question I ask all of my players in a session 0 that I every single time will ask, how are you guys feeling about guns in this campaign?
Yeah. Right? Nope, hate it, next.
Yeah, right? And some DMs will be like, nope, hate it, next. Other people will be like, I literally want to play.
How do you guys feel about gun control in this campaign?
Right? And bring that in, because some people will get all bent out of shape if they're walking down and they see a mechanical airship fly over their head.
Yeah, I think as long as it's standard. If I'm playing in Eberron, I'm cool with it. If I'm playing in Greyhawk, I'm not. And that's just me. I mean...
Yeah, but what you guys are referring to there, because you guys know the setting so well, is you need to have the DM needs to have a thorough understanding of their setting, whether it's homebrew or whether it's whatever. There just needs to be some set consistency.
Which goes back to the thing that we were talking about earlier with you, Terry, about reading the module, giving it at least a glance over first.
Yeah.
Right?
We need an overview, and we need to know the climate of the campaign and where it's going. Because this Wood Elf Ranger over here using the longbow is going to be super pissed that the next Wood Elf Ranger they meet has got a hunting rifle, So
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So, okay, we have meeting NPCs, we have setting the tone, we have meeting each other, so meeting the players.
Quest givers, and what do we mean by quest givers?
Yeah.
Do they have to be people? Do the NPCs have to be quest givers?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. It could be a bloody book that is on the side of the road. It could be a dismembered arm. It could be
a forest fire making its way.
It could be a forest fire making its way, which I've done, and the druid wasn't happy with that campaign. Yeah. It could be any list of things. It could be a family heirloom that was stolen, and the entire family was murdered, and the only thing they can't find is this heirloom, so go find the heirloom.
Yeah, so when we say quest givers, we don't necessarily mean people. We just mean those plot hooks that lead to the
quest. I really like the simple answer of the corpse in the middle of the road with the piece of paper in their hand. Right?
It's fun if you've never played it before.
This
is what I keep coming back to when I say, I'm going to be the voice of the noobs, and it's there's some tropes that have been overdone. For some people, yes. You may never have played the corpse in the road, and you'll be super excited if you see it.
Okay, all right, so hold on. Let's talk real quick about what the other opening tropes are. There's corpse in the road, there's tavern. What else do we have? Festival.
You do have the man running into the tavern or wherever screaming that whatever's happened, so there's the obvious quest giver.
Yeah.
Either a buggy, boat, a literal jail cell, something.
Waking up in jail.
Waking up in jail, and you're on your way to either be executed or thrown into a more secure jail.
Mm-hmm. Shipwreck.
Or something. Shipwreck.
Shipwreck is a pretty famous one. The one that I've seen more than once, strangely, has been the evacuation of the town. Right?
Yep.
Where the town, for whatever reason, is uninhabitable. Everybody just hits the road, and you're walking along, and you start off protecting refugees. You're on an escort mission for the first 3 or 4 sessions.
Yep.
I've seen that a few times. But so those are the stereotypes. They will all hit pretty much a basic idea of NPCs that you'll meet. Even if it's a corpse, you're going to meet that NPC and you're going to get some flavor off of them about who they were, and they may have a note to their beloved whatever. So you have a couple of touchstones. You give a shit for some reason.
Yep.
And you have your quest that's been given, your inciting incident, whatever it is. Your characters have met each other. What else checks those boxes? What are some... I like 2 each. What are some unique starting locations?
I got one that I like, because I think quite often we go in media res and we go mid-battle.
Yeah.
I like the idea of post-battle immediately. And I tell you why I like this. You tell your story of whatever's happened while this battle's going on. Post-battle immediately, because you're going to have few remaining people, so you're going to have critical NPCs. You're going to have the party itself who are meeting for the first time. You set the tone for the world because everything is scorched and on fire because this world is riddled with dragons.
Yeah.
So you have the quest givers because whatever happened in that battle has happened for a reason, and something else is going to happen afterwards because of it.
Either the good guys won or the bad guys won. Either way, it's going to matter.
Yep, exactly. And which side do you want? Are we the good guys? Are we the bad guys? So it's a very interesting, exciting way to start a campaign, and it covers all the bases. Go.
Okay, cool. Do you want to go next? Or?
No, you go ahead.
All right. The one that... Okay, I mean, I'm going to cheat. I say, besides tavern, can I go to an inn? But the way that I want to start... I keep waiting for Terry to have a mouthful of water before I say something stupid.
I ran out of water, so I'm moving to this water.
All right. Can I start an inn?
You almost got me. You almost got me. I didn't think you were going. I didn't think he was going to say it again.
So the thing I want to start my next campaign that I'm starting, a brand new world, the whole thing. I'm already kind of working on ideas in my head. Is going to start off with a bunch of people in an inn, and they're total strangers. They don't know each other, and a god appears to them while they're sleeping. And you know this. This is before they can even do anything. You start off. The god appears in your dream, wakes you up, and is sitting at the foot of your bed and says, I need you to do a thing for me. Look for these following people. They are destined to follow this quest with you in order to do this thing for me. So instead of starting off with who are the NPCs and what's the quest and who are the other players and whatnot, I started right off with, here's the bad guy and here's what you need to know, go. Right? Yeah. But you have divine favor. So now your clerics and paladins and anybody else, your divine soul, you have a god. Like you've already introduced this pantheon in, and you have a touchstone, and now you're hunting temple to temple. It's more of a religion side or a religion skewed version of a standard campaign. I really want to start that way. Yeah, you're in a tavern, but you're not downstairs drinking at the bar, right? You are in your room at 2 a.m. by yourself, and you just bam wake up, and maybe you're traveling with your kids. And you're like, so you're gonna live with your aunt and uncle for a while because Daddy's got to go off on this quest. Like whatever it is, you have different things to do.
Yeah.
That's a unique way that I would start with because it's gonna hit all of those touchstones, and it immediately forces your players to then meet for the first time.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, who are you and why are you important?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Dan, do you have?
I've always liked the idea of, I know I said festival earlier, but find like some sort of stupid festival game and all your players are starting in that situation at the same time.
The greased up pig.
Catch the greased pig.
Yeah.
So your entire party, I don't care what you are, you're a wizard, you're a rogue, you're a barbarian, you're a paladin, you're a cleric, I don't care. You're all in a pit without armor, without weapons, and there's a greased pig, go. Right? And you have to figure out ways to use the environment of this pig pen.
I love that.
To come together as a party. And then have some, and then some dude got shot in the back of the head while he was giving you your prize, and an arrowhead pops out of his mouth while he's handing a medal.
Or melee tournament or something, where it's combat-based, but it's non-lethal combat.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. My second one is, because you kind of just twisted something like the town festival. I want to twist something else, which is the shipwreck. I always wanted to start a campaign with the ship is being wrecked, but you are not landing on the beach. The ship is sinking, and you are on the ship, and you start underwater. That's what is happening here. There's a few bodies around you because how many rounds do you get? You can hold your breath for so long. You get, say, 6 rounds. There's NPCs around you. You have a job where you need to save them.
So you're really starting your players in the deep end, huh?
Yeah. Oh, Dan!
Boo. That was a little fishy, Dan.
But there's a call to action.
I got one.
There's a call to action. You're going to die in 1 minute. There's NPCs that you need to save. You must work together, and there's ways out of this. They don't necessarily need to die straight away and be like, that was a great 20-minute session. Merfolk can come, or from here they can be washed on the beach. But I don't think you necessarily need to wake up on the beach. You can wake up in the thick of it.
Okay.
All right. My second one is, we've all seen The Hobbit. We've read The Hobbit. We know The Hobbit. That starts off with a once upon a time, a lot like many years in the past, when I was this, I met these people, and it starts off in a character's home.
Yeah,
and other players are just knocking on the door, right? I would start that way. I would say that, hey, you know what? You're sitting around a campfire with someone that you just met, and you, Dan, are sitting around a campfire, and you, Terry, you're a tiefling, and Dan, you're dragonborn, and you guys are best friends, and you've been out on the road forever, and these are not the characters you've made. And I'm like, and you sit down with the wise and old wizard who says, So my name is, and then I pick the character's name that Dan actually made. And my name is this. I'm an old man. Let me tell you the story of the most harrowing adventure I've ever been on. I was sitting at home one day when. All right, and then you start that, and now we flash back into our... And you can start anywhere then, right?
Yeah, you can start on the road.
You don't have a party coming together. You have one person telling a story of what happened next, right?
Yeah, that's your way of the name of the wind. That's your Hobbit. That like a couple great fantasy books start off that way too.
Now it's a bit of a railroad to start it. It is because you as the DM are considered to be like, oh, okay, Dan, your character's doing this. He's at home. What is he doing? And then Dan's just going to wander around as his old dwarf, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, and you're reading a book, and you're finished the book, and you're on the chamber pot, and after the chamber pot, you are over in the kitchen making dinner, and there's a knock on the door. Terry, your character comes in, right? Without waiting for Dan to answer the door, right? Why? And then I'm handing out scraps of paper maybe with plot hooks or whatever it is. But I've started a campaign in such a way that a tavern isn't needed. I'm still hitting my NPCs of Terry is technically an NPC telling, as far as Dan's concerned.
Yeah.
Right? But he's also introducing himself. I come from this area. I come from this land. It takes a little bit more prep work from session 0. And you got to get people all on the same page early from a meta perspective.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good way to bring people in.
Yeah.
Especially if, Terry knocks on the door and he doesn't wait. He just falls in, slams the door behind him, and an axe starts knocking the door down. He's being chased by marauders of whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Now you have your call to action and all of your other stuff. You can hit your big important points. But that's how I would do. That's how I would do probably a one-off or something short.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, please help me, I'm being chased. And then those two go outside. But then 2 other witnesses are there. And now there's 4 of you trying to chase off this one guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to call this one the Squire. And it will require a little bit of assistance from one of your players.
Squire's my second favorite sex position.
Yeah.
Oh, other than the purple trombone?
Whoa.
Night and day from the purple trombone.
It was the purple saxophone. You guys are just terrible. You are bad people. Oh my God.
Anyways.
Purple trombone.
I would talk to one of your players that you trust beforehand and build this party that is slightly more powerful versions of the characters they're making and have their characters be played as NPCs. Give your players, these slightly more powerful versions of their characters, and then run a small little magnesium flare encounter where the 4 of their knights, the 4 of their mentors die, and now you're playing your 4 characters who are all picking up the mantle and trying to do this mission afterwards, right?
That's cool.
Have something along those lines.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that. Yeah, that's different. I would never thought of that.
And it gives your players a little taste of here's what you're going to be able to do, right? And I mean, if one of them's a wizard and you drop a level 20 wizard in front of them, that's going to be rough. Make it a level 5 wizard.
No, make it a level 20. That's just going to toy with them.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, then you have a guy sorting through we're level 14 and you get 18 spells as a cleric at this level. There's so much information you're going to get.
Fair.
You're going to get a bit of analysis. Make them level 5. And then your rest of your party's level 1. That's enough of a lead where you'd have a Squire at level 5, right?
I think that would be really exciting for new players as well. Kind of look what's down the road for you. Here's a little taste.
And now I'm going to pull that out from under you, and here you go.
Yeah.
Right? It's the Final Fantasy VII. You're walking in and you're destroying stuff right off the bat, and then, you're going to wake up and now you're level 1 again.
Final Fantasy VI starts that way too. I think that's a standard trope in a lot of video games.
Yeah.
God of War does that, right? But the other thing for a DM to really think about, after session 0 is done, and you're looking at who your party members.
Peter! And this is why he doesn't do accents, ladies and gentlemen.
No, but that's just inspired me to learn a new accent.
So when you're looking at your party members, and you realize that they're all arcane casters, or they're all divine casters, or no one has magic. If they've all clumped over into one kind of aspect of the D&D landscape as far as character building goes, start thinking about what can you do with all divine casters. Do you start off with a temple? Or maybe the archbishop has called all of the leaders of the temples into one area and it got bombed, right? And now you are sitting there by yourself. You hear about this, and you have to quest in, and you start off in the wreckage of this bombed temple, meeting the other divine casters.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe there's a wizard's contest to see who's good enough to be his second in command, or to be the person that he's going to inspire. And all your arcane casters showed up. And the wizard chooses an NPC. And you guys are just the dejected assholes sitting in the pub afterwards going, man, I could have made something of myself.
I like that. That sounds like fun,
actually.
Right? So,
and then your mission is to get back at that wizard and become powerful enough to take him out.
He becomes the big bad.
Yeah. That's actually fantastic. I would love to do that.
He ends up being a dark wizard.
A warlock, a wizard, an
arcane trickster,
an eldritch knight, like all sitting in the party together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
then you should meet the person that won later on in the campaign and they hate their job.
Oh yeah, the hours are terrible. So yeah, there are many different ways of coming at this. This session 1 is really what we're talking about here.
Yep.
Different ways to prep it, but there's some real basics. I'm just going to wrap it up. There's some real basics to think about, and that is: do you do the prep work early and recycle things? Are you going to railroad? Are you going to start with an in media res moment? Are you going to allow the players to kind of make their own decisions, or are you going to force them into a session 1? I guess the 3 big takeaways for me. Actually, I'll ask you guys. What's the big takeaway for you after this one?
That we all have different opinions. You could do whatever you want. In the end, in the end, whatever prep style you go with, you just have to know that there's no right or wrong way. It has to be comfortable for you, and you have to find a way to make it work. But you have so many different options, so don't ever feel like there's the right way to do it.
Yeah,
there's different ways to do it. We've all given you different examples of how we can make all of these different ways work. Just make sure that you're comfortable with it. Your players are engaged with what you want to do because you covered it in session 0, and that however you bring them together makes sense and it works.
Yeah. For me, it would be DMs. Engage your players in the world building process.
Yeah.
Get their input, get their insight. If they want to have some random NPC that you didn't have planned before, throw that NPC in. Like, bring them into the process, and players trust your DMs in this process because it's hard, and they are trying to hit your story points, but they're also trying to hit the other 5 people at the table.
Help them, help you.
Help them, help you.
Okay, my 3 big takeaways, as I started to say earlier. One was communication is so important.
Oh yeah,
right from the beginning.
And I think that we put that across very well.
So yeah, right from the beginning, though, you as a DM need to be clear about what this campaign is going to be, and you as players need to be clear about what kind of player you're going to play. And if that changes, that's fine. I have been in campaigns where players have retired their character because they're just bored of them. Mm-hmm. And that's cool. Rolling someone else. You don't need to die. You're not married to a character, right?
Yeah. So somebody actually reached out to me today about that. It was a DM essentially asking how they can stop their player from doing that, and I kind of said to them, no, like if this is a really big deal to your player, it doesn't need to be a big deal.
Yeah, let them go, but reserve the right. I would reserve the right to then use that PC as an NPC now.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you don't need to kill them off.
Yeah.
They can just.
We're coming up to a point in this campaign pretty quick that we're playing right now where that might be a reality with my character.
Oh.
Right? Like, we're coming to a point where he's coming to a very natural end to his storyline. Mm-hmm. Like, I might be rolling someone new for this, right? So.
Yep. So that was 1. 2 is have multiple options. Whether you are throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, or you're prepping a bunch of stuff ahead of time, and seeing which direction that they're going to go in. Whatever it is, have that prep work done, and don't be afraid to justify things after the fact. Even though that's not my way, Dan, I think that's going to work for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially when you get caught blindsided by players, which will happen, right? Where you are going to have to say, "Oh yeah, I gave the big bad evil guy this amazing weapon. You guys killed him 15 sessions too early and stole his weapon." Mm-hmm. It's a cursed item.
Right? So. Everybody knows what's going on. Unless you're a really new player, in which case you're like, oh, what rotten luck.
Yeah. And the last thing is, don't be afraid to start with the action, even though typically you don't in your standard D&D campaign. Yeah. Don't be afraid to, but be aware of what you've missed by doing that, and know that you have to go back and hit those points.
Yeah, for sure.
So...
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
Not from me.
I'm good.
All right. This has been episode 12, World Building. And
Next week, barbarians.
next week, we're going to talk about barbarians,
We are.
which means Terry's going to just look unimpressed while Dan giggles for
Oh, it's going to be
an
so
hour.
good.
Name of our sex tape.
Oh, it's going to be so good. High five.
Terry
Yes.
looks unimpressed while Dan giggles for an hour.
An hour's being
Thank
generous.
You.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you. No, I'm taking it.
all right. And thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to It's a Mimic. Check us out online at itsamimic.com or on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have questions you would like answered by the guys on the show? Send them an email to itsamimic@gmail.com. Tune in every Tuesday for more.